Hi, everyone. Good afternoon. We'll start sharp in 2 minutes. Thank you, everyone, for being here.
Thank you. Pleasure.
Hi, Ekta, can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Hi, everyone. Good afternoon. So, before I start, I just want to know if I am loud and audible to everyone.
Yes, you are.
Yes, thank you so much. So, hello, all. A very good afternoon. And myself, Ekta
Hi,
Dubey.
Ekta. Yeah, we can hear you.
Okay, thank you. So, myself, Ekta, on behalf of the Pragmatics team and our partner, AMIO, we welcome you all and thank you for being part of our roundtable on reimagining CX in post-COVID world BPO Spotlight. So, to start with, first, I would like to introduce a partner, AMIO. AMIO is an omni-channel customer engagement platform that empowers customer experience team to deliver exceptional customer service. With AMIO, it's easy to deliver end-to-end automation for the most demanding customer engagement processes.
Hi, Ekta. I am sorry to interrupt. I think I'm not able to hear any voice.
Ankur, you're not able to hear? I think everybody is able to hear. Ankur, I would request if you can just rejoin once again because yesterday you were clear and audible.
And we could hear you well, Ankur.
Yes, Ankur, we can hear you. Okay, no problem. So moving ahead, about MEOS speaking, conversations across marketing, sales and service on any engagement channel can be served from a single platform. Their solutions also includes case management, outbound dialer, and customer service, CRM combined with powerful reporting and dashboard that surface actionable insight. We have, of course, Mr. Sachin Bhatia would be highlighting more on the solutions they have. So now our roundtable basically reimagining CX in post-COVID world BPO Spotlight will focus on as the pandemic unfolded, how has the BPO industry responded and how flexible the industry has been in navigating innovative and pragmatic solutions to support their clients, which was the need of an hour. We have great set of thought leaders from the BPO industry today, and I'm happy to introduce them. We have Mr. Ritu Parnabakshi, Head Quality Enterprise with Tech Mahindra Business Process Services, Mr. Venkat Umakant, VP and SBU Head Analytics and IT with V Technologies, Mr. Sanjay Lokapur, VP Finance with Epicenter Technologies, Mr. Mukesh Jain, CTIO and VP Insights and Data with Capgemini India, Mr. Vikas Surekha, Global CFO with StarTech, Mr. Anup Babu, AVP Intelligent Automation Solutions with Genpact, Mr. Ankur Srivastav, Assistant Vice President Business Development with Cogent E-Services Private Limited, Yahya Rashid, Global Head of L&D and Quality Digital Workplace with HCL Technologies, Ms. Subha Sahani, Business Acquisition Lead India with CBSL Group, Mr. Bhardwaj Ranganathan, APAC Head of FPRA Consulting with Capgemini India, and we have Mr. Praveen Venturkar, Director Global Procurement with Teleperformance. And we also have a moderator, Mr. Sachin Bhatia, CEO with Amio, who's going to run the entire show. Thank you all the speakers for being here and taking out your time with us. Over to you, Sachin, now to take the session. Thank you so much, everyone.
Thank you, Ekta. And we have a dozen of experts from the BPO industry. So I'm not going to bore everyone with pitches around MAO. In one line, if you are doing anything with your customer engagement with message bots or a human being call center, inbound or outbound across mediums, that's what MAO solves. And some of you have already used us, some of you continue to use us. So thank you for your business and thank you for your support. When I was thinking of what all topics, and we have done it for various verticals, BPO is an interesting vertical because it gets impacted in two ways. There are operations.
Recording in progress.
I think there is a problem.
Let it settle down. Okay. Can I ask just everyone to go on mute once?
Yes.
And I will try and speak again. No.
Amayo or Ekta, are you able to mute everyone?
Everyone apart from me is mute now. So
Okay.
till it comes, then there is a problem.
I think it's gone now. Yeah, it's gone.
It's fine now. Yeah, it's fine. There was some issue.
I don't know if somebody joined through a mobile device.
Yeah. No, it was a feedback from the microphone to from the speaker to the microphone that caused that. But that's okay. So BPOs, they get impacted in two ways. Of course, there's direct impact of operations, going remote, managing technology. And then their customers are, significantly impacted. The volumes went up, down, and hence it's a very interesting industry that gotten impacted with COVID. It also stood as a backbone because BPOs were more equipped than some of the captives to handle, when everyone had to go remote in a very short span of time. So what we've done is we have sort of four sections on which we're going to do this conversation with, a room full of dozen friends the way I, want to do it. Let me touch the first topic. And this is something that I think is being debated as I was reading that we are at an all-time low on 30-day cumulative COVID numbers. We are back to what June 2020 numbers were. So that's optimism. But a lot of industries, once bitten, twice shy. They're looking at
Is everybody there? Because my screen has all paused. So
we are all here.
just want to
Was this? Sorry.
Ankur, I think there must be some network issue at your end. That's why your screen must have been paused. But here, yes, we are all here, and Mr. Sachin is taking the session.
Ankur, we can also hear you. So definitely some issue with the network. Yeah. So, and this is more interesting. Going remote for BPO is more interesting. We did a survey in the middle of the pandemic, and the responses from the BPOs, given that it's a margin business on infrastructure, simple seats is really high. What if, and in some cases, this was 25% of the agent's cost. So if we were spending, let's say, 30,000 rupees per agent, we were spending 7, 8, 10,000 rupees on the seat infrastructure cost. And what if we could completely get away with that? That would create very different business models. And we heard BPOs getting really excited about it, that this would mean that, the cost models would completely change. But it also meant that we'll have to hire differently, onboard differently. So the first topic that I want to touch is, and I would bring in Rituparna, Ankur, Barry, as he's professionally called, he has made that very clear to all of us. And Yahya, that how do you, how do you react to long-term remote versus hybrid? What are your thoughts? What are the discussions on the boardroom today? Are we set for long-term remote? Is this going to be hybrid? And how do we manage talent? So maybe I can bring in Rituparna first. Rituparna.
So thanks, Sachin, for the question. I think this is a very relevant question. And let me explain what I mean by the word relevant. It is relevant because we are at a particular period of time when we will, I think, need to take a call on which direction we should focus into. See, up till now, we have been in a situation where we have been hoping that a month later the pandemic will not be there, a quarter later it will not be there. So we are just looking very short term on how to just go live through this quarter so that things will be back to normal. Things are now, as you rightly said, looking at being to normal, and this is also a right time for us to decide whether we really want to go back to normal, or whether a permanent work from home for a part of our workforce will make for a really good and sound and conscious business model, rather than something we had to somehow survive. I think that period of survival is over. I think it is time for us to really use this as an opportunity to really see if we should look at pivoting to this new model as a really beneficial model for everyone, for all the stakeholders. So I'll pause there, Sachin.
So how does Tech Mahindra think about it, Suparna? Are you guys looking at mix and match? Is it remote? Is it, you said, a part of the workforce, so it seems some part of the decision has been taken, but how are you guys thinking about it?
So there is some part of the work which is and that is specifically focused on some content moderation business, the machine learning, boxing, that kind of business, which we have with some of the tech companies. Now that is where we are actually looking at a permanent flexi solution. So again, there is a company which we procured which has such a platform. Again, that will also require us to look at how we will manage the quality check and quality control of work which will be done by freelancers. So again, there is a discussion in that direction of moving to a long-term model.
So for the real-time interactions,
No.
whether it's voice, video, you still feel that it's going to be primarily from the workplace?
See, now that's a different question. I don't know. I don't know the answer to that question. Definitely, the way things are today, I mean, it's not easy to manage work from home for that kind of workforce that you're talking about.
Sure.
We are familiar with the work from office. I think from productivity, quality point of view, it will be always comfortable to get back to a work from office situations. We've also had. So yeah,
someone trying to record from their end. I've made
so if everyone can be mute, everyone who's not talking. Okay. Yeah. So I'll just make one statement and then I'll hand it to you for more questions, Sachin. It is that. And let me say this, whenever, so again, as part of our work from home and work from office, we have been having part of the workforce working from office, part of the people working from home. And as different other companies would have experienced, we always say people who are not performing well, get them to office. People who are performing very well, let them get back to office, so that our overall numbers for the whole program shoot up. So in both of these statements, get the worst performers to office, get the best performers to office to get our overall numbers to bump up. The assumption is that offices are more manageable and a better place to work from, but that is what is the current situation here. Sachin, you're on mute if you're speaking. Yeah.
My apologies. Can I now bring in Ankur? Ankur, you had, you're Vice President for Business Development in Cogent. When you are going out for new contracts, is this even a concern? How are your customers thinking about work from home? Do they even care? Or they are saying that now that remote is happening, we can reduce prices even further. What are the customers saying? If I can have Ankur's views.
It's a valid question because whenever we go out in the market, so last year it was really bad and every client wants us to start working from home. We faced a lot of challenges in initial 5-10 days to manage how things are going to be, how these guys are going to log in from home and what are the securities we can actually adhere to as per the client requirements. But I think within first 10 days, all got figured out. And I think most of the BPOs have, or rather organizations have transported workstations to agents' houses, delivered them, and then started working from there. But eventually now with post the second wave over and the lockdown was over, so clients now actually want people to come back to office. A very few clients are still there who are insisting or who wants some percentage of the total workforce to work from home, but the maximum 80-85% of the workforce is back in office. Though managing the workforce from home and getting the same deliverables, KRAs and targets achieved when the scenario was work from home. And again, you have given a lot of assets to these agents and you really don't know from where they are working. So are they really working from their home or the location which they have actually mentioned in their details, or they have gone back to their hometowns and from there they are working, and all of a sudden you find that, okay, the agent has disappeared, your asset is gone. So a lot of losses may also happen. So what we as an organization have done is we have, with our software team, we have developed an employee management system through which every person who is working from home or working from office has to punch in through the mobile app. So the moment they punch in, we geotag their location and map the information in our system and the geotagging which has happened each day. And the moment it mismatches, we immediately call back the agent or the employee that, okay, you're not at the particular location, you have to report back to office. So that is how we are tracking people now. And this has actually helped us. Plus, working on the employee management system, we have actually developed a lot of things where real-time performance can be tracked at any given point of time by anyone who is managing the account. So that is one more help. That is what we are actually portraying now to our clients when we are going out in the market, that, okay, work from home, work from office. We are capable enough now to manage any of the situations. Though we as an organization and the clients now want everyone to be back in office because of the fact when you are working in office, you build that culture, you build that working environment, build that seriousness into the employee's mind, and the thought process runs as per you. So that is why everyone wants to come back to office and run things pretty much from the office environment now.
Craving for that serendipity and all.
As employees forever. Okay, I think it's a very big change. There's a lot of technology which has evolved in tracking employees. For example, there are softwares which are being used like Work Doctor or Pulse and other aspects of it, which can track the employee. For example, every screen the employee is opening and working on can be tracked. And to Ankur's point, we are also able to box people in on an IP address, so to speak, right? For example, and geophysically tag them to a particular location, a particular building, so to speak, in a area. So that kind of keeps the control on the employee with reference to what work packages people are expected to deliver. But having said that, I think employees as a whole, and I'm sure all of you are aware of what's the great Indian resignation now happening. People are drastically rethinking their careers and their opportunities. I think we will have to look at a scenario where employees may be working for two companies at the same time. He could be a medical transcription guy in one company, and he could be a call center employee in another organization. So that's the possibility of the gig economy, and that's going to be happening very soon. If not, maybe in next 2 years, I think it will mature as a model. But what is the challenge which we are facing as employees is to keep the employee motivated in a remote environment. I think that's the biggest challenge. So in with reference to what we are trying to do is we're trying to build incubation centers. Whenever a new project is coming, whenever a new customer is being acquired, how do we bring that assimilation of the team and bond them into one team, and then we can let them go into different directions and start working. We are looking at a hybrid model where employees will have to come to work at least a couple of days a week, and anybody who is getting onboarded will be completely face to face, and offboarding also will be face to face. And given all this IT assets and things like that are also there right now, so onboarding, offboarding, project launches, all these things will be face to face, and then we're looking at 2 days per week to be where employees will be all together, so that there is more bonding. As you rightly said, a lot happens in a 5-minute face-to-face conversation than in a half-an-hour Zoom call, because attention grabbing and what do you call it as the entire cycle of concentration is very fast when you do it face-to-face. It's very hard to do it on a Teams call or a Zoom call. That said apart, I think customers are getting smarter. Customers are asking for differential pricing if we change the mix of where people are working from. It's not that we get to keep all the money, and no, the customers are also demanding a fair share of that particular saving, if there is any. And as I rightly said, engaging talent, maintaining talent is going to be very key, because the majority of the workforce, and if we talk about millennials as such, they're completely reprioritizing what they want to be in life and what they want to do with life. I think that's something which we have to inculcate in our work structures. How can work be more fun and more learning and more rewarding from a time is the biggest currency which people are looking at this point of time. I mean, they're saying that we can always make more money or do things differently. And that's, I think, what is causing all this migration, because people have said in this 2 years, I mean, why am I doing this for money? Why am I not doing something which I love to do rather than, I think these are the challenges. And we are trying to split our workforce into, I mean, I would like to reference what Ritupan sir also said. You have to look at the engine, which is your top performers, the go-getters, as to how they function, and the laggards, so to speak, because the speed of the organization's growth is directly proportional to the collective speed of the organization. It can't depend upon just the fast trackers who are the first 15-20% of the organization. So it will be the medium, the middle level employees as well as the laggards who will determine the pace of the organization's growth and speed as well. So I think those two aspects have to be completely, because like when you said, we have to get people who are not working very well into office, and we have to get also people who are working very well into office. So what happens is, if I'm working very well, I feel like it's a punishment, because then I'll not stop working. I don't want to come to office. Then I'll start pushing down my performance so that I stay at home and work, right? So there has to be that balance, that check and balance of what we do in terms of rewarding the employees in the right place as well. Yeah.
So I think I would also add on the point which Barry just mentioned. So keeping motivated employees, I think people who are more tenured in the organization, who are best performers or top performers, we can move these guys to a work from home environment initially, just to ensure that, okay, these guys are kept motivated, and the employees who are new to the organization, new to the working, can get that zeal in them that, okay, if I go ahead and achieve those targets or achieve as per the benchmarking, I'll also get some chance to work at least for some time, work from home, because work from home, again, for agent level or a junior level, it's really like a reward to them that, okay, I'm working from home, sitting at home and working. So they actually keep, so we can actually keep them motivated and then move on with that. And maybe on a rotation basis, we can ask these employees to come once in a week, twice in a week to office, so that those rotational meetings and thought process sharing can happen on a regular basis.
Well said.
I'll just add, if I may, yeah, I'll just add one clarification sentence over here. Related to the statement I made about the laggards and the top performers. See, again, we are keeping on experimenting with the with this with who to get to office, etc. So the context about top performers is that let's say you are approaching the end of the month, 10 days to go, and you need to get maximum positive surveys, right? So your best batsmen, you would want to get them in so that you just maximize the number of positive surveys responses, let's say, for a customer. And I said, I mean, at the end of the day, it's also about numbers game.
No, absolutely. What I'm saying is that it has to be differentiated. So their contribution, just like if they are best batsmen, you have to make sure that they're recognized for it and rewarded for it. Because if that doesn't happen, then we are falling into a big pit, right? That's what I meant.
Let me bring in Venkat. He had raised his hand and he's been quiet. Venkat, you had a point of view. Can I bring you in now?
Yeah, thanks, Sachin. I hope I'm audible.
Yes.
Some good points from Ritupan, Barry, and Ankur as well on this particular topic. And if I just go by what we did in our organization, obviously, Sachin, as you mentioned, with the pandemic hit, the initial thing was to make sure we are transitioning into work from home. And I think everybody went through the same set of challenges. Now, barring, I think, one or two clients, majority accepted the work from home kind of a philosophy. But what actually this taught us, at least the founder of our organization, what he learned from this is, for one set of client where people were actually stationed within the office, they were working, maintaining all the COVID protocols and all that. What that led to is actually had a beautiful idea about starting something that we call it as a V-Hive, right? So initially we were focused only on particular cities within India. But then we said talent is also a challenge. So why don't we just spread ourselves? And we also look back, when you look at an agent a level thing, with the kind of compensation that he gets, he roughly spends about 30-40% on the rent itself, right? So we thought, why don't we create a concept where it is, we provide them a place to stay as well, and then they work, right? So we call it as a V-Hive, something which resonates with Beehive.
Wow.
So we've started that in a couple of cities, and the idea is to really spread across other tier 2, tier 3 cities as well, where we provide them the accommodation. There is obviously bonding, because we heard about employee engagement. That's a big challenge that we have when we're working in a virtual world. So this is something which I wanted to share because we've started that. And I think, as Ritupan mentioned, a lot of these are experiments at this stage. We don't know what will work, but the only thing that we can do is keep trying different things. And I'm sure things will work.
I am reminded of something that we discovered in this survey. One of the things that people started saying is, and the great resignation is, I think, a trigger for that, and all of us are going to experiment with it. One was the tier 2, tier 3 spread, which I think you very rightly said. The other was a non-traditional workforce. So, for example, housewives or people with special abilities. This is an opportunity because it was never felt that it is possible, and now we know that it is possible. So can we get a different kind of workforce who can actually stay longer? Because attrition, 2 years back, attrition used to be the biggest problem in the BPO industry, right? And if we can actually solve that using this trigger, it would. But all these are experiments, as you rightly said, because to conduct them at scale, this would need a little bit more data. Let me bring in Yahya Rashid from HCL. He heads learning and development. We all know onboarding has become a challenge. how do you guys look at this problem in HCL? Is this still remote? Are you doing a little bit of hybrid? And how does that change quality or learning and development that we do for our folks? Yeah, I can't hear you. I don't know if you're on mute or. No.
No, we can't hear you, Mr. Yaya.
Okay, I'll bring you in. I'll bring you in. Okay, let's give it a couple of seconds if we can hear him.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So with regards to HCL, I know when we first we were in the midst of this pandemic, we had one of the largest accounts that got transitioned, and it was almost about 6,000 odd people. So we kind of did everything remote, and learning and development, onboarding, assets. Despite all the first wave of lockdowns, we had tremendous amount of learnings as well as opportunity in getting this whole thing done. Right. And then after that, we kind of stabilized it with a lot of course, we had certain challenges with in terms of our operational issues and so on, because it was the first of its kind. But we kind of stabilized it with the new normal. But now what we are seeing is that as things are getting stabilized, and it's still, we're not out of the woods from a pandemic standpoint, but we feel that a hybrid model works well. And, I think one of the areas that what we are looking at is bringing the senior leadership first, come to the office. And we've chosen about 2 days a week, to start off with. And then that would motivate people to come from the tier 2 and tier 3 cities. But the challenge is today people are so used to working from home, and they have kind of absorbed this kind of a new model. Motivating them to return to office is a challenge right now. It's a different kind of a thing, and they are used to the savings and so on and so forth. So we do offer certain rewards for people to return back, both from certain motivations, non-labor part, as well as like the previous gentleman who Venkat was sharing, that we're actually planning to have certain hives where people come and take up, spend some time, about 2 months or so, and then move back to their cities. So a kind of a hybrid model, to say the least. But what we have seen so far, Sachin, is that the amount of collaboration and so on that we see, right, in a normal operation, that seems to be kind of missing out. And so what we feel is that, bringing people and having those kind of conversations during our war room sessions or whatever, to solve these real issues, transformative play. I think those are the areas that we feel that bringing people to office works. We are going with a hybrid kind of a model, but we'll see how things go. But we are more on a hybrid scale at this point in time.
Got it. Thanks for sharing, Yaya. So good insights. We see people saying, okay, we want people to come to office. We also have experiments where folks are saying that we want to see if the hives could work, whether as a transitionary phase or maybe as a long-term talent retention. And one common theme seems to be that the employees actually are very comfortable working from home. That seems to be like one common theme. So people who would be able to crack this, that you can give that motivation to them, but still get the quality and the security and the engagement going, I think would emerge out to be like the biggest beneficiaries out of this. Okay, let me bring in the second topic. This is very close to heart. About 2 years back, I was addressing a bunch of CIOs in Mumbai, and these are top CIOs in India. And I made an extremely bold stand on artificial intelligence. Everybody was hoping that I would sell AI. And I actually said that everybody is doing AI because there is a fear of missing out, and they really don't know why they want it, right? So, and I actually completely unsold AI to everyone and said, you focus on problems, and maybe AI is a solution, but don't do AI because the next guy is doing AI, right? And with the amount of capital coming in, there are newer and newer products. But I think 24 months down that talk that I did, I've started as a consumer, I've started seeing use cases where AI is actually becoming very interesting. And I've seen my kid talking to Alexa, and he's much more comfortable. He now talks to my TV. He doesn't need a remote. And speech technology has definitely come a long way. And those observations as a consumer led, we also acquired a AI company very recently in the conversational AI space. But now that we have folks who are maybe looking at this question every day, is there scope of something that we can do in our operations using whether speech or modeling or training or even quality, right? There are so many areas in the BPO, or even RPA, and automating some of those mundane tasks that we were doing. So let me bring in again Venkat, Sanjay. I don't think we have Mukesh from Capgemini right now, but Barry and Anup. And I'll start with Anup. You are the intelligent automation head at Genpact. Can I get your views on which are the areas where automation is really working? And you can answer both as a consumer as well as a practitioner, right? I want to hear some real life use cases of where we did something and an impact was seen because of AI and automation. And you're on mute, Anup, in case you're trying to speak here.
Yeah, hi. Thanks, Sachin. So I'm sorry, if, not very clear. Am I audible?
Yes, you're very audible.
Okay, very good. So I mean, of course, I mean, I've been part of delivering automation services to our BPO clients, operations. I mean, seen changes in the way automation itself is being approached post-COVID. One is in terms of the use cases. Earlier, the approach was let's go for quick wins, automate stuff, the low-hanging fruits and all that. Change in approach. Our customers have been more reaching out in terms of. See, I think one is with COVID, customers understand that they have to expect, contraction, expansion in, whatever volumes that they do. So we do a lot of supply chain automation, and some of it is around trade promotion planning and price variances, because especially during COVID, there were a lot of price variances, and there was a lot of research and study needed to do before approving invoices, before ensuring a deal is made. I think one from an approach standpoint, there was a change in the request for automation use case itself. The other aspect is around design itself of the automation, and as I said, customers had to expect that volumes are going to change, going to fluctuate. So building that into the design was a strong focus. I mean, building scalable automation, high performing automation was always on an agenda, but I think that changed to a level where we started spending more time on design, ensuring that automations are scalable. We have multi-bot architectures by default for every automation that we do. Before, there was a choice. I think that is definitely something that we've seen. Of course, more consumption of our AI features of all the RPA tools that we use. I mean, primarily around document understanding. There's been a lot more use cases that we've done in the last 8 months around that. Yeah, and the other thing is, one topic around resourcing itself. If you look at, typically RPA developers, they're single skilled, they have automation skills, but the approach that we're taking is, if you look at full stack developers, right, in a traditional web development, they understand, their back end, front end and all that. We're also looking at full stack automation engineers, right, that they have capability around cloud, around AI, around automation itself. That brings in a lot of value for us, because we are also able to cross utilize people. And automation is built on the cloud now. There's a lot more AI now. So I think, I mean, from a individual standpoint also, it's good to think through as a career, as a full stack automation engineer. That makes more sense for everybody. I think these are some of the things that that we've seen changing dynamics.
Thanks, Anup. You mentioned about models in the last group, which was insurance. One of the areas where this has really worked is risk rating and analyzing data and profiling folks. That is right. One application, especially in insurance. I think it has reached adoption stage. It's no longer an experiment, and everybody, it's table stake now. But then simple text bots is something that is, I mean, I have myself talked to my bank bot for a simple query like, how do I get a demand draft? Which otherwise would have been a call into the call center, and that's huge advantage. I mean, it naturally came in front of me in the app, and I just did it, and then I realized that, man, this has started working. It was not working up 2 years ago, but fantastic inputs. Can I now bring in Sanjay? Sanjay, if you can share, there are implications on cost, there are implications on capex, opex there in the automation, but give me your views on what you have observed in the AI and automation space.
So I've been fortunate enough to be a part of this discussion earlier with you and other team members here. Having worked in the finance as well as in the automation both in the last 30 years, what I would like to bring to the table is that automation and work from home. So they have been brought on to the various industries because of COVID. So earlier there is a lot of resistance for automation, a lot of resistance for work from home. But because of COVID, even the clients were forced to accept it and work with it. So the same case with automation also. There has been a lot of pressure on the cost because of the COVID situation, people not being available, people not being easy to monitor from home. And just to give you a perspective, companies from like IT, software industry, they had better systems to monitor the employee working. Like say, Jira was there, they could monitor the work, how it's progressing very strictly. But in case of BPO, some companies had good monitoring systems, some did not have. So the people who did not have the monitoring systems, they suffered. And that's the reason why the costs are going up, the efficiency is going down, and there is a lot of pressure on the profitability. So this is a place where automation was required. And as much as possible, companies have tried to bring in automation by way of chatbots, by way of automating some simple tasks like email queries being answered by the bots, or some tasks like the information which is required to be given on a telephone call being made available through AI automation. So these are various initiatives which are being taken up. And one more problem which we are facing today since last 6 months is the huge demand for software professionals, and due to which the salaries are going up tremendously. And that again brings back the solution to being the automation. So even in automation also, there are certain areas where there are repetitive tasks. So while we do automation, we do testing, we do creation of various accounts. So all these are again repetitive. So we have been trying automation within automation, automation of automation processes. So this actually reduces the cost and reduces the burden on the software team. I think there are a lot of innovative ideas which can be explored, and automation is still not very mature. As the people were saying earlier, it has not been completely mature. It's not at end-to-end automation. We need to drive towards end-to-end automation by understanding the capabilities and understanding the impacts more clearly. There is a maturity required. It's a slow process. And I think we together as an industry are going to master that. And there is no competitive atmosphere here. We are all working together. And I think it is a end to be reached together.
Hiring of developers is if any of us are doing it right now, that's probably the hardest task for the Indian startup ecosystem. And one of the very, very interesting articles that I read was where they said that stop building things or stop building so many things and start stitching things, because if you build everything from scratch, it's going to get more and more and more expensive. So I think that's the value trend that we are seeing. And as a software professional, as an entrepreneur, this excites me, but also that I need to get 100 more developers in the next 5. That's a nightmare to solve. But thanks, Sanjay, for bringing that in. Can I bring in Venkat again? Venkat, you,
Sure.
What have you seen working in the AI space, automation space, as a consumer or as a practitioner?
Sure. Thanks, Sachin. And see, I've had the pleasure of looking at the macro picture also, because before joining this organization, I was with NASSCOM driving the Future Skills Prime Initiative. And that initiative was all about spreading digital skill set, making India as a global talent hub. So I had the pleasure of working with a lot of large BPO organizations to try and influence them. How do we go about adopting AI, RPA, and all of that? While RPA was being adopted, AI, ML wasn't much, right? And I think technology, the COVID probably has driven the dependency on technology, right from the work from home thing. The other areas which was probably not looked upon much earlier is on the security aspect, right? So security is something which has suddenly gained a lot of limelight because especially with the work from home, that becomes very critical. Cloud is something which has taken a lot of prominence. So if you look at from an AI ML at the ground level, there's still a myth with the clients as well, saying that it's going to solve all the problems or it's going to make it completely paperless, so no manual intervention and all that. But since we talked about the hybrid model, I think the same thing applies here as well. It's still going to be hybrid. This is only going to enable the business, but doesn't mean that you're going to completely move away from the manual thing, which is very critical in today's world. So from an automation perspective, one of the things, because I've been in the consulting space also earlier, which I keep talking from the clients and the internal stakeholders as well, is a very fundamental thing is about not everything that can be automated need to be automated, right? So there's a tendency saying that, okay, let's automate this because everybody looks at it from their perspective, let me reduce this. But it's very important to look at the larger picture and say, okay, what is the ROI of that, right? So one, it could be a repetitive thing that a lot of my partners mentioned here. The other thing could also be some of the things which are more complex in nature, which could be error prone. Those are the things that you might want to automate. So there are things to look at. For example, in my conversation, in some cases, it comes up saying that, okay, a human actually performs a transaction in say X time, and the bot takes a little more than that. So what is the value? So that's again an isolated view. It could be because it's complex, it's taking a little longer, and obviously it's an evolution. It could be tuned as well. But the important thing to look at that is on the quality of that, right? From an accuracy perspective, that is one aspect. The other thing to look at is humans are prone to be like fatigued. If you work 7-8 hours a day, they're prone to make more mistakes, but bots can run probably 24 hours a day, right? So that's something we need to look at. From an ML perspective, if you look at it, we're still scratching the surface, I would say. This is my individual perspective. There's a lot more that technology can deliver, and that more can be explored. One of the major challenge that all of us face is actually with the data, right? Because what you feed in is what you're going to get, garbage in, garbage out. So data is something which is very important, and that differs from one vertical to the other as well. For example, we work a lot in the healthcare space, and healthcare with all the PHI and all that, it's difficult to really get the data, right? So we've created quite a few models, but the challenge is getting the data to really make sure the model, it learns actually from the data and fine tunes itself, right? So that's something which is very critical. But as you mentioned in your earlier thing also, Sachin, from a healthcare space, we do a lot of work in terms of risk assessment. We're trying to move into the prescriptive thing as well. Can it sort of use this ML modules to sort of look at the old historical data and predict what could be coming in? It could be on the claims part, right? So a lot of times, even though the doctor has actually prescribed a medicine, the diagnosis is probably not captured in the prescription, right? So because of which the insurance claim doesn't happen. So can we use some of these modules to really see where the gaps are? Because here everybody gets benefited. The hospital gets benefited, the individual gets benefited. So that is one space. Of course, NLP is another important space, which is gaining a lot of traction. And again, it boils down to data being at the core. We need to have the right data. And that's where the partnership also comes in terms of can we partner with certain entities where we can actually get the data and fine tune that. So that is something. And if you look at from the benefits, I think it is quite evident in terms of what automation can provide benefit in terms of operational efficiency, consistent quality, repurposing of resources, because today the biggest challenge is getting resources. So can we reduce, say, 20% or say even a few FTEs, which can be repurposed and put into something else, which drives more towards the FTE realization. So, and some of the things that we need to look at is also when you look at the automation, one, as I mentioned, is whether there is a real need for that. One is whether it is more of a volume driven, because the ROI measurement is very important before we really make a decision of moving into that. So I think that's an important space to really look at. And one last thing, since we talked about data, which I think most of organizations are not really focusing much on, is on the data engineering part. While we talk a lot on data science and all of that, which is more in terms of creating the models, but unless you have the data set right, you can't really develop those modules. So I think data engineering is something which, as you've seen the last few months, it's getting a lot of traction. So that's going to be
Amount
there
of
for in the future as
the
well.
amount of companies that have gotten created in the data engineering space, data warehousing space, it's just mind-blowing. And you're right, because that's sort of a precursor to build any model. And the garbage in, garbage out is a very, very good real fear that you invest in everything and nothing comes out of it.
Absolutely.
Barry, can I get you in just for a couple of minutes on this point? Before we jump to the next topic, and this is a topic that can take the whole day. It's that good a topic, but please, Barry, on mute.
So, from a point of view perspective, I think you're very right in convincing people that they should not go to AI. I would completely support that, and even 2 years from now, don't do it because you think everybody is doing it and you'll miss out on it, or it's too sexy to have it in your world, kind of thing. We basically prescribe and see that we follow a methodology, and we say you should eliminate, you should optimize, you should standardize, and then you should automate. You should use your within whatever levers you have to automate within what is your ecosystem, and then robotize, and then go in for ML and AI as such. And if I were to look at the landscape largely, fintech, financial services, banking, this has been at the the tip of the spear along with retail, so to speak. I mean, today most of my customers speak and talk about processes. They say we want an Amazon-like experience. Sometimes it's very hard to tell your customers that, guys, you don't do what Amazon does, so why do you want an Amazon-like experience in the first place? So that has become the hallmark of CX at this point of time, with reference to what you can incorporate. And I think Venkat brought in a very good point. There has to be an ROI at some point of time. I mean, that ROI has to be, the payback has to be quicker. And with so much technology changes happening, I mean, like right now in my own processes, we are running 4th generation bots, and we see a hell a lot of difference between what was the 1st generation bot and 4th generation bot. And it's not like it's been 5 years or 6 years. It's all within 24 months, 30 months time frame we're talking about, right? So much has changed. So invest carefully, integrate it within your ecosystem, and don't be tempted to build a lot of stacks which are standalone, and then you need to build another set of bots to integrate that. I think that's the key message which we are driving.
Don't go after the next shiny object and pick it up, is what I'm hearing, man.
Yeah. Fit to purpose is something which we are very, very strongly advocating and preaching to the community where we consult, because we feel that build capacity, but don't over exceed your brief. That's what it is. And we're seeing make logical decisions on what should be actually going into the realm of AI, right? From finance and accounting standpoint, one of the key things which we are also very much vehement in our offering is saying that how do you build controls which are robust for this new world when transactions become fast? Okay, and I keep talking about this to a lot of my customers and say that please, there cannot be railway signals for bullet trains, because by the time somebody sees the signal and stop the train, it's already 12 kilometers away. So there has to be a level of automation and controls when transactions go so far. And second thing is, for all of the people who are out there, and I come from a very old Six Sigma mindset in General Electric. So we used to have a couple of processes in Six Sigma. We would call it as DMAC, which is we design, measure, and bring the process into control. And that is only effective to a certain extent. I mean, that will only give your impetus and push so far, because then after a certain stage, what will happen is it is like mounting a TVS 50 engine on a bicycle. It will work. but when you start trying to put a bullet engine on a bicycle, it's not going to work, right? So the technology overwrap on the existing infrastructure of the process also has to be balanced. So then we strongly recommend that go for DFSS, which is designed for Six Sigma. Chuck the process what you're doing right now. Don't try to put too many band-aid fixes on it and try to make it more effective. The better way would be to reimagine, redesign the process from step one in the new context, rather than keeping some of the old and try to build engines which will make it more effective. Because you can only harvest X number of bags of rice from 1 acre of land. Okay, if you want exponentially to grow it, you have to grow the land base. Right. So that part, I think that's the balance which we need to. And I mean, I completely agree with what even Anup said from Genpact. That investment which goes in has to be thought through, and that design phase is very important. I mean, if you spend a little bit more time on the design, your implementation and your results will exceed what you plan for, rather than you being very hasty in having a big vision and jump into this and then get quagmired into this. And last but not the least, I would want to mention one thing which we literally practice as a mantra especially in AI, ML, robotic spaces: fail fast. Fail extremely fast. If something is not working in 4 weeks, chuck it out, because then it's not going to work. Because if you spend 14 months on something like a project, and if things are iterating and technology is changing, then you will not have a product to show for, and there will be no ROI, there is no payback, and it only strengthens the dark side of people who keep telling things that AI and ML doesn't work any which ways, right? So fail fast, get out of that mindset, restart. I think that's the mindset we have to be in. We should not be attached to the project from a defensive perspective to defend it, to make it work. If it fails, I think we have to put ourselves onto that strongly and say, yeah, it has failed and let's move on with it. I think that's the mindset we need to cultivate as leaders, and that's what we advocate as well, to say that it's nothing wrong in failing 4 times. I still remember that quote from Thomas Alva Edison. He had just failed in one of the experiments with the light bulb. His lab assistant was like morose and things like that, but Thomas Alva Edison was upbeat. He said, you failed again. He said, no, I didn't fail again. I just discovered 3,400 times it's not going to work. So, yeah. And if you take even the example of the Dyson inventor, same thing. I mean, he almost made 6,000 vacuum cleaners before he got it right. So, but I'm sure we don't have the time and opportunity to fail 4,000 times or 6,000 times. But the idea is we should take that lesson and move forward. That's what I have to bring on.
Yeah. Thanks, Barry. You are a fun guy. I want to have beer with you, man. Okay, Uncle. Very quickly, let me bring you in, and I have just time for one more topic. So, Uncle, if you want to say, yeah.
So I just want to add on to what Barry has mentioned. I'm just clubbing both the points. One, to act fast and get the decision done fast. And the second thing is when you implement all those Six Sigma practices or a Prince 2 practice or a DMAC approach. So these things actually doesn't result when you go with the processes which are already there. I think you should pick up the points or the ground level realities and then start building it with the Six Sigma or a Prince 2 approach. That will actually help you to build up a robust process for a long term. But if you try and build up more and more processes over what is existing, so I think most of the times when I have done a lot of projects in my past, so the approach where I start from the scratch helps you more getting on to the right result and very quickly. So I think that should be the right approach.
Anup also wants to come in. Anup, you want to add?
No, yeah, there was one thing that I missed saying was, around the metrics, around automation, but feel free to continue your thought, Ankur, and maybe I'll do that after that.
I think
continue, Ankur. I mean, I can do it.
You can go on. Anup, you can go on.
No, one thing that I missed saying was, around the metrics post-COVID. I mean, typically for automation, it was FT savings and, hours savings and all that. What we are now doing is, a balanced scorecard for automation. It's not just FT savings, right? Simple example is, what's your same day turnaround for your customers, right? How do you reduce your compliance rates, right? Compliance, it's not just FT savings. So because that's a narrative that we had wanted to change, but I think COVID has been a trigger for us to also bring in other metrics for automation, so that it's no more just those big numbers on FT savings. There's a lot more metrics that one can do. It needs a little thought, just as I said, more time on design, more time by the BA or the business analyst to connect the dots between the metrics, like increasing your top line, and of course avoiding your costs itself, for audits and compliance and all that. There's a lot more digitization of audit trails now with RPA, and that is helping automate a lot of the audit work itself. So a lot of the controls, for example, there's a lot more controls now with RPA, and we are seeing bringing in a lot more automated controls for controls testing. So those are some points that I wanted to add. I think it's an exciting time because I am a big fan of doing BI and analytics on, so combining that with automation is a very good opportunity right now for a lot of folks as well.
Thanks.
Yeah, that's it. That's all I wanted to add.
Let me very quickly, because there is one topic that I really wanted to touch, and that's something that is useful for me to get inputs on. 5 years back, when we used to go to a BPO, the models used to be that you buy technology and then you amortize it over 5 years, 7 years, and God forbid if somebody bought technology a couple of years ago, because it's changing that fast. But I wanted the CFO's view, because the operations wants the new shiny thing every other quarter or every 6 months, the way startups are coming in. So how does one take those decisions? What are the cost models now? Are these mostly OPEX? Do we still have certain CAPEX in which we invest today? How does one think about it when there's so much uncertainty? So I wanted the procurement and the CFO folks to come in and share their views. And we have Praveen from Teleperformance and Vikash from Startech. And Venkat, then I'll come to you also on this point. But Praveen and Vikash, if you guys are there, CAPEX, OPEX, how do you plan now when every other day the team is saying we want this new things to come in to deliver?
Yeah, I mean, thanks, Sachin. I mean, it's again a classical question, right? If you really see, the way I see how this industry is playing out, especially for us, right? This is almost like a blockbuster Netflix event playing out for this industry, right? And it's really exciting times right now. Historically speaking, over the last several decades, and it's very mature industry, right? It's built on a certain assumption, right? And it works very well, right? The assumption really is, you build capacity and you go sell that capacity, and then you optimize that capacity. That's the real thinking. And it's also cash cow in some sense that, once you build capacity, you build scale, it will churn out cash. And it worked perfectly well for several decades, right? And then, of course, COVID happened, and it has led us to reimagine in terms of how we need to think about the future, right? And right now, the challenge we all face is we are trying to predict something that we can't predict. Like, we don't know how these things will unfold, right? Suddenly we see clients, a certain client, the volumes are going up because it's a high touch industry, and people are sitting at home and clicking so many calls or, buttons and trying to contact them. There's advent of 5G, which is coming up, which is making conversation that much more complex, and more complexity leads to more conversations, which means more business in this industry. And there are some customers which are really struggling, right? And the challenge for us has been that, and also the entire IT, cyber security, etc., is becoming like a major issue, right? I mean, we as a company, it's a public event, so I can talk about it. We had a ransomware attack, right, just 3-4 months ago, and it was a major disruption for us, right? And that has unearthed a lot of deficiencies that we have in a system, because we invested in these businesses under certain assumptions, and those assumptions no more are valid. And we are today having a situation where we have to have twin networks to support a customer. We have a brick and mortar structure, and then we have a work from home structure, right? And we don't know what's the right mix. Is it 50-50? Is it 75-25? And all of us, as you can imagine in this call when you're talking, we're all trying to get back to the normal that we're used to, because we are very comfortable with that, right? So we are trying very hard. Hey, let's get to office twice a week, 3 times, high performers, let them in, etc., etc. A lot of models are being experimented. So the challenge for us has been that, you have to say, okay, I don't know what I don't know. So therefore, you have to re-architect this organization in the manner that build for the future, right? So you have to work towards a target model. And when you're trying to work towards a target model, then the question is, what risk are you willing to take, right? Do you like go and buy all the technology that you need, and then hopefully you build scale around it and then amortize over a period of time, or variabilize everything, right? Historically, the only variable thing that works in this industry is the people cost, right? Which is anyway majority of this cost. So people are comfortable with that model. But cost around facility, cost around the technology, etc. How do you variabilize that, right? So we are taking a point of view that let's variabilize as much as we can, right? And it also helps us then cut cords where it's not working. So it gives us the ability to experiment more, right? And just I think Venkat, you mentioned, right, just recently that technology is changing very fast. We don't know what's out there in the next 12 months, right? So let's do something that works today. Let's repurpose that in the future. So we are trying to convert the entire model into variabilized model, which helps us, build scale around it, change as we go along, and bring new technology as it comes in. So that's the way we are thinking, and it also helps us cash flow, right? No point, burning a lot of cash upfront and then try to recover, right? So we want to variabilize cash flow as well to the extent possible. So that's really how I think.
Well said, Vikash. I would share to corroborate what you just said, right? 2 years back, of all the business that we used to do as a technology company, 85% from India was CapEx. And post-COVID, 95% of our business has been on OPEX. So the shift is so clear, and you rightly said, people want to variabilize costs because they don't know what they don't know, as somebody said, right? You don't know the view of what's going to happen. So you basically invest and say, what is it that I need right now? And if it's working, I'll continue using that. But that means change in the mindset of the CFO, and it's good to hear you taking that view. Praveen, can I bring in?
I'll add one more point.
Sorry, Vikas, go ahead.
I'll add one more point. See, it's also a question of mindset. See, if you look back in terms of how investors looked at these companies, right, or how business people looked at these companies, everybody was focused on metric called as EBITDA, operating margin, etc. If you go and talk to a CTO of organization, they're very hesitant to take a variabilized model because that goes and hits their operating margin straight away, right? So it's a mindset in terms of saying that, how do you variabilize this and what different metrics you need to follow for you to gauge business performance is becoming a huge conversation. Like return on capital employed is a metric this industry never used. It was used only as investment metric. It was never used as a business metric, right? Economic value add as a metric was never talked about. We are talking all these different metric to say what is success for us. So it's a mindset change, not only at the leadership level, but at the operating level also in terms of, how do you make decisions, which creates value for your organization and for investors. That also is like a very important shift that is happening right now in the industry.
Well said and very interesting. Praveen, can I bring you in?
Yeah, thanks, Sachin. Sachin, most of the points has covered by Vikas, and we know that this BPO industry, it works on those like the investment done, a model is prepared, and then we bring the clients, put the agents, and you start earning that way. And as you rightly said, that the variable cost in the industry has that variable portion has increased to 90%, and that's true because it has become very unpredictable nowadays that what client is going to ask us. When we think about a project, when we think about our sales and marketing team is saying that we are going to get a new business and we are going to have 5,000 agents. So earlier it was very easy. 5,000 agents, we want this much space, sitting space, technology, computers, laptops, all things, CCTVs, and we used to budget everything and put it into the place. And once the business clicks in, we used to work on that plan. It was very easy to do that. Now we don't know how the client is going to say, or how the client is going to demand. Whether they are going to say, okay, we have like 2,000 FTEs, and we want our 1,500 people to work from home and 500 to come to office. And they're all calculations and all all the plan fails. And sometimes some clients say, okay, we want to work in a cloud environment. We want our team to come, like 4 people will be coming, others will be working, and everybody knows about the cloud. And we are in Teleperformance, we have done it successfully. We have done it at many places, and yes, it saved money. Earlier, shifting from the model like work from office to work from home, initially it gives us a choice of getting more margins, but it lasted very short. Client came to know about it immediately and they started demanding their price reduction. So it has become little difficult to plan and to predict what type of things or whatever things we should put into the place if you are expecting some business. And there is tremendous growth we are expecting in the BPO industry. Of course, our company, you might have seen in the newspaper and in the news articles that we are expecting a lot of like doubling our capacity in next 3-4 years. Doubling means we don't know how the agents will be working from home or office, but yes, it's going to be like
Cloud is the solution there. You are absolutely right, Praveen. That when we don't know, then you basically take a safe bet and don't commit upfront.
Yeah. So that's one good thing is happening is about this variable cost, but of course we cannot keep everything variable. There are some fixed components. Of course, in BPO industry, most of the spaces are rented spaces. Most of the cost is variable cost, including agent salaries, which is a major thing. However, there are some fixed costs which we have to plan and budget, and it has become little challenging at this scenario to do that activities. But of course, I think it will evolve eventually, and in 2020 when the COVID started, all the expenses started going down. We were happy from the procurement perspective, like we're getting discounts, cost reduction and everything. Rentals has gone down, but then the revenue also went down in the same range, and we we were like struggling with the margins. Then the next year 2021, this current year, we are still we got some cost down. Of course, the inflation started hitting recently, but and the revenue started going up. But now that means the difference between revenue and cost, we started getting good margins. And then now in 2022, where customers are demanding discounts, the revenues margins are going down, and then we also have to think on the way that how we can reduce and we can reduce the cost and work on those things from the procurement perspective, to get this balance. So I think it is stabilizing in a nutshell, and it will take at least a year more where it will be stabilized, and we cannot say that everything will be work from home or everything will be work from office. It will be always a mix and match, but the percentage will be decided by the the coming scenario, the technology, the demand, the customers and all those things. I think we all will have some clear view on this in the coming year.
Gentlemen, it'll be rude for us if we don't have the only lady amongst us talking. So Subha Sahni, apologies, I'm bringing you absolutely in the end, and we have run out of time, but it'll be extremely rude if I don't bring you in. Subha,
Not a problem.
Can I bring
Not
you
a problem.
Let me put you on the spot.
You just saved this entire roundtable discussion right now, Sachin.
Sorry?
You just saved the entire roundtable conversation right now.
So, Subha, can I bring you in and ask? There are two things that I was thinking. One is when Praveen and Vikash were talking about, making it OPEX. When you are bringing new customers, are they understanding it? Are you able to bake in that cost? And the second thing is, one thing that you've observed changing in new contracts that you guys are pitching to your customers?
Okay. Like, Vikas and Praveen said that, people are still working and the OPEX model and the ROI, like Venkat mentioned earlier also, the ROI has to be noticed properly. So in that ways, my clients are actually, they always want to, before I pitch any, any proposal to them, I always pitch in with the ROI, how they can save money by, doing a little more digital transformation, whether it's a digitization. I meet lots of clients, who approach us for the digitization, where they really don't have an idea that they really need it or they really don't need it. So that is where, we help our clients to have, we consult them in a way that this is the way you can digitize your documents. And this is the way you can, this all things can help you out. So this is the, what we are doing right now.
Sure. Well, CBSL is also a partner with both Ameo and Exotel. Reenu is the guy that we're in touch with. And we have seen them, giving and offering completely on cloud models, including technology to their end customers with the flexibility. Okay, there are a couple of folks who have raised hands. We'll obviously not have time for more topics, but I will bring, I think I see Vikash now and Barry had raised his hand. So maybe we'll these 2 points and then we'll try and conclude. Venkat, sorry, you raised your hand physically. So let me bring in Vikash first, then Venkat, then Barry. That's the order in which I'm seeing you on the screen. So I just picked that up. Okay, Vikash, go ahead.
It will not take more than 60 seconds, right? But Shubha mentioned an important point, right? I mean, see what's happening right now also in the industry is, how do you revisit and reimagine the pricing models itself, right? So there has been a traditional pricing model of, FT based, time based, etc. Now we are experimenting with more risk that we are willing to take, right? We are willing to say, okay, we are going to commit a certain outcome while it is already there baked into the contract, but we are going to take more risks on this, right? In terms of outcomes you're going to deliver, and whether the outcome is delivered out of a patch solution that, which is we bring a lot of solutions together and build a wrapper around it and deliver out of either a high-tech digital platform or work from home model or a work from office model, doesn't matter, right? We will deliver a X outcome in a certain cost outcome that is relevant for the customer. And we are then willing to make higher or lower profits depending on how we perform, right? So this thinking was kind of nascent in this industry, but right now I can see like significant amount of traction coming right from the customers as well to say, okay, guys, what is that you're willing to do as outcome and price your proposition accordingly. And that shift, I think, is very dramatic, and it can really reshape the industry in terms of how you deliver, how you price, how you monetize your assets. All of that will become more critical. And this also helps, I'm sure Sachin will be music to your ears, all the SaaS players, right, who are like building several new products that are coming into this market. How do you like bring them into your fold and then monetize them as an ecosystem? So all of that is like playing a huge role right now.
Now, the second point I've already seen, especially in our internal parlang, BPOs are called partners and not customers, because with folks like Subha, we are always going to the end customer and trying to sell the outcome to them, because ultimately, if you guys get the business, then we get the business. So
absolutely,
and I love this gain share model has been during NASSCOM early days. We used to hear it, but the amount of importance it is getting now, because there's so much variability, that if you don't do this, then you can't have like fixed cost, fixed asset, fixed return kind of model. Nobody is gonna. So everybody's saying, if you have the skin in the game, let's play it together. If we win, we win. We lose, right? So, Venkat, can I bring you in?
Sure. Thanks so much, Sachin. And wonderful points from Vikas and Praveen as well, and Subha. See, I think everything is moving into as a service model, right? So, and on a lighter side, I keep saying that even today, in today's world, even relationships are actually becoming as a service. You want to have a relationship as long as it's adding value, and then you sort of dump it, right? So on a lighter side, but yeah, that's where it's moving into. And if you look at from a software perspective, also the same thing applies. There is all the conversations about build versus buy for organizations who have capability to build in-house, whether it makes sense to do it. Just because I have capability does not mean I need to build it. It's also about the go-to-market. And as you rightly mentioned, and I think Barry also mentioned, the challenge is also about, if you have a lot of these bits and pieces, integrating that is a much bigger challenge. Managing that is a much bigger challenge. So, and I think this as a service, if you look at it, since you talked about this CapEx versus OpEx and the variable cost, I think it's much broader than what we are probably focusing on, because we touched upon a lot of these elements, right? We are sure to be in the hybrid model. The percentage might vary, but I think we are sure to be in the hybrid model. Now, once you get into the hybrid model, it's also about the, like somebody mentioned about the individual seat capacity and all of that, right? So each seat cost. So that also is going to be into as a service, right? How many do I really require? I might shift into some other model, right? And the same thing with resources. The gig economy is nothing but as a service, right? I want to use resources with the skills that I require, especially when I look at IT. The technology is changing so fast. So do I want to have a liability, or do I just get in people as I require? Even if I have to pay a little premium, that's okay, right? And internally also, I think there are some businesses where I see it's a more of a, I would say, a cyclical kind of a thing, right? So there is a particular period over the year where it picks up and then it slows down, right? Now, we're also looking at from the support functions, for example, talent acquisition or HR and all that. Do we really need these many people? Because during the peak, yes, we require, but after that, what happens? So should we look at outsourcing that again as a service, right? So I think it's a much broader conversation. And it will evolve over a period of time as we really understand where we're heading. Because as Vikas said, I think we don't know where we are going. We're just looking at what we know as of now and trying to make measures. Thanks, Sachin.
Only thing we know is we are going.
Yes, absolutely. Moving ahead.
Everything as a service, and I love the relationship as a service example. Let me bring in the man with the gift of the gap. Barry, can I get you in?
And I think these are disadvantages going last, but I think I completely agree with Vikas in terms of and Venkat brought in some very pertinent points. I think Praveen articulated pretty well, and Subha is also brought in the aspect of how we can add value to the customer. My goal here is there is something in between what is fixed and what is variable. Okay, I mean all accountants would have heard and dealt with this word called deferred revenue expenditure. Okay, I think that's where we will fit in. Okay, we will not have something which is fully capex kind of a thing and opex kind of a thing. It is capex which has to be amortized in an operational time frame, say 18 months or 24 months, because I think that is the longevity of what we are seeing on the shelf of products at this point of time. The second thing is, I think we have to get creative around contracts with our customers and share assets and bring some value into the customers as well, because if we are too siloed, this pay by drink model, which is what I call it as, for the pay by drink model, the customer can't be choosy that you have to have a soda fountain in my office and it has to have this kind of regulation, blah blah blah. When it is a pay by drink model, I think there has to be a certain bit of adjustments on how you can share the asset with other people who may use it as well, and how do you leverage out of that as well. Because then what happens is, rightly so, I think we can definitely pass on a few cents back to the customer. They will win. It will be a pure win-win situation for us and also to others, because today what happens is we bring something in which is specific to a customer, nobody else can use it, and if that thing goes bust, then everybody loses, right? The customer and we all lose. So I think we have to evolve towards a more shared model of how we bring in operations to people, and that will bring more skin in the game for us as well, to build and exploit on. Yeah, we have been trying on outcome-based pricing, but everything cannot be outcome, and that's a challenge with some of these things. Definitely experimenting with transaction-based pricing and services a model. Like for example, that I think will be there to stay. And when you go transactional model, I think getting the arc and the rook is going to be the very critical component, because you can get butchered in that. It's like losing on blackjack. You will suddenly lose up $1,000 where you are expecting to lose 200. So that's a critical part in doing that. I think these things, and completely agree with Vikas. I think this is the era of Christopher Columbus and Vasco da Gama. We don't know who will reach the destination and who will reach America instead of India. I think that's the journey we are all on at this point of time. I think we have to evolve and see. I mean, both are good, right? See, Columbus did discover America and Vasco da Gama did come to India. So both are good. So, but we'll have to, that's the outlook I have. I mean, I'm very positive that whatever the destination to wherever whoever we are, I think we will end up in a cozy spot. We'll have to exploit it. But yeah, there is uncertainty in this journey at this point of time, and we have to tread carefully.
As long as there is intent to move, we will all reach somewhere, is what I'm hearing, Barry. Hey guys, I think we have taken more time, and this is very, very interesting. But I see Sanjay and Ankur raising hand, but I also see the organizer beaming me that we are completely out of time. So maybe we should do a follow-up session with all of us, because this was really interesting, and I hope it was in a physical environment where we could actually be around each other. And I always love it over a coffee or a beer. If you're in Gurgaon anytime, give me a buzz. We will catch up. Otherwise, I'm sure we have earned 11 friends each. Thank you so much. I will like to close this session and bring in Ekta again, because I think we'll run out of time. Otherwise, this conversation can keep going. Thank you so much for your time. And there was very good open sharing today, which I loved. in conversations like these, people actually share examples of what they have seen, and that gives us insight, all of us insight on what is really happening. Ekta, over to you.
Yes, thank you so much. So, of course, this was a very interesting session. And as you said, of course, we can have a second session on that virtually. And offline, of course, people have started meeting. So, yes, so on this note, I would just like to thank all our thought leaders for taking out your precious time, being with us and sharing interesting insights on BPO Spotlight. Of course, our partner Amio and Sachin for being a wonderful moderator. And all the thought leaders, thank you once again for being here. I shall be sharing the video with you in a day or two, and I shall keep you posted in that. Yes, thank you so much, everyone. Once again, stay safe.
Thank you.
Pleasure meeting you. All the very best.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks.
Bye.